I've heard you say, I think that you believe it's like one of the most, if not the most important laws that you talk about. Why is being formless in life so important, especially as it relates to what we were just talking about?
Well, I'll go back to that. I just would add one thing that I was to our previous thought here was the tendency when bad things happen to you is to become self-absorbed, right? To complain, to go inward, to think about yourself. And what you really want to do is try and force yourself in the opposite direction. And it's not been easy for me because I know I've tended to become more self-absorbed under the pressures of this, but I struggle against it. You want to actually try and find a way to be even more interested in other people, to be more interested in the world. Get outside of yourself because that is often the best therapy. It's also where power lies. But as far as assumed formlessness, the way the human brain operates is we tend to make things into categories. Our thoughts tend to be frozen. We tend to have these ideas that we get from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, a few days ago. They're set in our brain. This is how we do things. This is how things must be done. This is what the world is like. And it divorces ourselves from reality. So, to use a metaphor that's almost cliched at this point, it's like a river. Life is like a river. And as Heraclitus said, you cannot step into the same river twice because you are not the same person and it is not the same river. So everything that goes on in the world is in a state of total flux or flow. It's never static. Nothing ever stays the same. Your emotions that you're feeling right now that you think are so real and substantial, your anger, your resentment, your excitement, etc., they're just in continual flux. 10 minutes later, you're not going to feel the same way. It's this continual flow of things, right? But if your brain gets locked in the past, it gets locked in certain paradigms. This is how things have to be done. This is how the world is. You're continually falling further and further and further behind the natural flow of life. It makes your ideas cliched. It makes you a conventional person. It makes you not creative. It frustrates you. The mind should be flowing continuously. And in Zen Buddhism, the idea is your mind should never stop on a single thought. It should continually be in a state of flux and of flow, right? So a lot of people with the 48 laws of power, they don't do that, man, and it's frustrating. They look at a law and they go, "You say this law here, court attention at all costs." And then you say, "Think as you like, but behave like others." Isn't that a contradiction, Robert? No, it's not a contradiction because every circumstance in life is different. The laws aren't meant to apply to every single circumstance in your life. Crush your enemy totally. You're not going to be going crushing your enemy totally every single day. You know, play a sucker to catch a sucker. That's something that applies. It applies to certain circumstances. Free your brain up from thinking in these conventional patterns where this is how things should be done. These are the laws. I made that the 48th law, and I said in that 48th law, disregard all 47 laws and the 48 laws of power. They're nonsense. Just be open to what's happening in the moment in your life and adjust your strategies to what exactly the circumstances you're facing. Don't be caught up in the past. Don't be caught up in what other people are saying. Think for yourself. Be like that flowing river. Be in the moment and be alive to every circumstance and every individual as being separate and different and unique. So that's why it's such an important law to me, at least.
Yeah. And what you said is so important because a lot of times people will read like books like yours and others and they'll just take it like literally and they're like, all right, I need to do this exact thing like all the time for me to be successful. And it's like, no, I think, like you said, situations and times are going to be different. You also want to take things like as you wish and how you can apply it to improve where you're at in your life. And there's certain elements of the book that are going to work in certain times and certain ones that are going to work in other times.
Exactly.
You mentioned that you have had some success and your work is incredibly popular, but I've also heard you say that you still at times feel like a little bit inferior based on the fact that you had success later on in your life and you kind of alluded to where you were before you wrote the 48 laws of power. So do you still like struggle with feeling a little bit inferior, and why do you think, what's at the base of that?
Well, it's probably something from my early childhood. If you could put myself on a couch and get a psychiatrist here, we could probably unearth some sense of that from my early childhood and my upbringing, where I'd come home with straight A's on my report card and it was never good enough. you know? So this kind of sense like no matter what I did, it was never good enough. So it's probably ingrained in me a sense of I'm never quite up to where I should be. Something is always a little bit inadequate. But I can say that for people who have a great deal of success in their 20s, it's often the worst thing that can happen to you because you're not prepared for it. You don't have the stability and the maturity to handle it. It goes to your head and you think, my God, I'm so wonderful. I'm so powerful. I'm so creative. I'm a god. I can do anything. Look at how many I have 2 million followers on TikTok. I'm just there's nothing I can't do, right? And it's you're setting yourself up for a disaster. In ancient Greek mythology, they call it Nemesis, the winged goddess Nemesis, who will come in and flay you because if you got too arrogant, your head was too high, and she's going to flay you and knock you down on the ground. Nemesis is going to come and get you. I had so much failure. I had so many moments of God. I'm just not making it here in life. People telling me in my early 20s, you're not a good writer. Go to law school, go to business school, novels that never got published. People in Hollywood who told me your screenplay sucks, Robert, get out of here. You know, time and again, where I wasn't measuring up. I had a lot of failure. I had a lot of things go, I know I can do something great in my life, but I'm not doing it. So there's a degree of humility built into that. And what it means is there's a bad element to it. It's probably what led to my stroke in that I worked myself too hard. But there's a good side to it as well. And the good side is that a lot of people, when they have success, like I had with the 48 Laws of Power, their first thought is, I don't want to lose this. I've got to repeat it. I've got to do it over again. I've got to write the 48 Laws of Power Part 2. I have to stick to this formula or I'm taking a risk and it could all disappear. For me, with my I'm never good enough mentality, I go, you can't just repeat the same thing over and over again. You've got to make your next book even better. You've got to try even harder. You have to work doubly hard to make that second book a success because second books are often the separating point that separates the men from the boys or the girls from the women, where you never get past that. Every time I start a book, I never rest on my laurels. I never rest on my success as I'm now on my eighth book. It's like, damn it, failure is at my heels. Tomorrow I could be homeless. My whole life could be destroyed. Nobody's going to read my books. And I'm serious. I do believe that. I've got to make this next book even better than all the ones before it. It drives me too hard, but it also is what ultimately led to the success that I've had. So in the end, I've learned to embrace it.
Again, thanks for being vulnerable and sharing what you shared about, stuff from your childhood and how that's impacted your outlook on writing and your success now. And like you kind of said, like success is a double-edged sword. Like there's a lot of benefits to it. It's super great. But then on the other side, it's like almost like a dog chasing its tail. Like you're still trying to have that same level of success and make sure you still are able to put out content that was as successful as the last thing each time. And each time you put yourself out there again, you like run that risk of it not being as successful. And on the other side of success is failure. And I think a lot of times people are afraid of going after success because of failure. And I've heard you talk about maybe this is why, based on what you just described, I've heard you talk about that success can be more dangerous than failure. Why do you believe that?
Well, a lot of people like I've had this experience, and I know it's common to a lot of other people in a similar situation, where your book just comes out, and this is back in the day where television still was important, and you'd go on these interviews or you'd give a public talk, and everyone would be looking at you, and then you'd go back to your hotel room, and you'd get so depressed. The high and then the low, you're alone. You're not getting that attention that you got. And it makes you feel like, God, I gotta get that attention back. I gotta have more of that attention. It's like a drug, right? And it is a drug. It is a narcotic. You become addicted to it. Attention in a success way, in a public way, and in a kind of celebrity way is very dangerous. It is a drug. We're a social animal. We want attention. It's one of our most important needs, even as an infant, is getting attention from our parent. And when you're getting attention from hundreds, from thousands of people, it goes to your head. It is like taking LSD or something. It messes with your mind. You want more of it. and it's unreal. It's an illusion. That attention that you were giving, that momentary love that you were feeling, isn't really very real. It evaporates. All those people go home. They're not thinking about you anymore, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you have success, that attention part is the most dangerous aspect. Because what really matters in your work should not be the attention you get. It should be the satisfying feeling from creating something brilliant, bold, exciting, innovative, successful. Whether it's a business, whether it's a scientific invention, whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever it is, it's the work itself, not the attention. Because if you make the work itself the goal, then every time you're going to be focused on that. But if you make attention the goal, you can't control that. You can't control how many people are going to be watching you, how many followers you're going to have. It'll make you neurotic. It will make you go crazy trying to figure out how many likes you have here. Are people interested in your tweets, et cetera, et cetera? It'll mess with your mind. And success messes with your mind. It makes you think that you're greater than you are. It gives you grandiosity. It elevates your feet off the ground. I tell people, and this is social psychologists have confirmed this, or have basically said this before I even brought it up, that normally our opinion of ourselves is always a little bit elevated, except for some people who suffer from very low self esteem. That's a different case. But most people, they think that they're smarter than they actually are. They think that they're better looking than they actually are. They think they're more moral and right and good than they actually are. And that's okay. That's part of being human. I'm sure I have that. There's nothing wrong. There's no shame. There's no blame about it. It's human. We have to have that 6 inches above the ground. But success, 12 inches, 18 inches, 2 feet, 10 feet, in the clouds. No matter what I do, no matter what I think, it's brilliant. People are going to love me. I can't go wrong, even though I say stupid things all the time. It must be brilliant. It means that me as a person, I'm fantastic. No, it doesn't. Your work is interesting, but you as a person have limitations. You're flawed. Success is so dangerous because of that elevating process of lifting you off the ground and making you think of the attention as opposed to the work and the results.
The way you just described it, I think it's so true. And you see a lot of people, like you said, that struggle with this. I've had friends who have written popular books and they'll text me and they'll be like, man, like, cause in recovery from drugs for over 14 years. And they'll
Oh,
text me like, man, they're like, now I know what it's like to get that rush. And I'm like, well, what do you, like, are you, everything okay? And they're like, no, from like my book. And I'm like, tell me. And then they talk about, it. I'm like, yeah, man, it makes sense. And I think it's hard because like fame and attention, like you can't see it. Like you can't physically see it, but it's something that is so addictive once you feel it and it's hard to let it go. And I think along this theme, along with success and how addicting that can be, is I think it's a good time to talk about reputation because I know in the 48 laws of power, you talk about the importance of your reputation. And we've seen that people on paper can have this beautiful reputation, but once like one bad thing happens and it's on the news, boom, sometimes you don't hear about them in the news anymore, right? How can somebody, if they're looking to build a solid reputation for themselves, what are some things that you think people tend to look for when they're judging somebody?
well, I mean, reputation has a falseness to it. Some people have a reputation for being infallible or for being absolutely geniuses. We saw this with Sam Bankman Fried and the FTX cryptocurrency scandal. This man has a reputation of like that 30-year-old wunderkind who's absolutely so brilliant. But the best reputation is founded on things that are solid, and you build it and you're aware of it and you construct it. The thing I tell people is, this goes back to you asked me those three things. I might have added a fourth thing in the beginning. Is humans, we judge things by their appearances. That's part of human nature. It's the animal part of us. What we can see is what we take for reality, right? So you always have a reputation. It's either a reputation that you create, that's your own work, it's like a work of art, or that other people are creating for you. Oh, he's lazy. Oh, he's stupid. Oh, he's brilliant. You're letting them define who you are. And I'm telling you, you want to be the one creating that reputation like you're creating a statue, like you're creating a work of art. The best thing is that it has a foundation of something solid. So you're not Sam Bankman-Fried and creating the aura of genius and, et cetera, but it's actually real. You actually put in the homework. You actually create a business that is built on a solid foundation, that is it's gonna last, that you've done the homework for, you know the details, et cetera. You're like Leonardo da Vinci. You've made something great. Okay. And now that you have that reputation and it's real and it's substantial, don't do something stupid. Don't make your next project shabby or shoddy. So people go, I thought this woman was creating something really solid and interesting, but no, they're not. And then once they doubt it, they're going to doubt everything. So you build it, you base it on something substantial, your work, the years of practice, your skill, your craft, and then you guard it like it's a treasure. It's like, the cave of Ali Baba. You've got all these jewels in this cave, and people are going to steal it. They're going to try and ruin your reputation. Guard it with your life and build on it, and don't do anything stupid. You know, I do a lot of consulting, and people come to me in situations where they've said something so insanely stupid. They've done something so dumb. It's ruined their life, right? And Robert, what can I do? How can I get this back? Well, I'm saying to myself, first of all, I don't work for people like that because there's nothing really you can do, I don't think. I say to myself, the best answer is to never say it in the first place, you idiot. Be aware of your public image. Don't get yourself caught in stupid things. Don't do things that we live in an age where everything is out there, everything is recorded, everything is public. Are you that dumb where you think that you could say something in private and it's not going to get out there? Just be careful and understand that. Understand that this is going to harm your reputation and don't let this happen.